Alrighty. Started back on things. Had a few little issues I wanted to take care of, and honestly, it's been so long since I've done some of them, I forgot what they were. So what I've got, front nose piece on the Trans Am, and it had, like where the bolt holes are. There was one that was ripped out. There was a little bitty split right here. Same thing, a little ripped out. Now, big washer goes under there. It will, which would have held fine. It's just a big headed, washer on a boat. But kind of easing myself back into this, so I just wanted to do a few things. Just like on these spoiler ends I did. These are the ones that are always missing on the spoiler. And basically all I did was grind down a bolt head till it was very thin, and then epoxy it into the side, and that's what holds that up tight on the side. Sometimes you don't even need them, but again, I was bored, so I wanted to add them. The other thing is on this front piece here, see where it's got the little whatever you call that, J-bolt, J-nut. This one here was just split off on the end. And again, it would work, but this just works a little better. So what I'm getting to is I can't remember what I used. So I had this stuff, bumper repair, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to find out in a few minutes if it was any good. I grind this stuff down with carbide bit, give it some tooth. But I can remember in the past, certain things didn't work. And again, I just can't remember. One thing I had used that worked as far as sticking and being a little flexible, which those pieces don't really need to be flexible, was this. And it's still pliable. I mean, it's probably a couple years old. And I'm pretty sure it uses just the same hardener as regular Bondo. Hopefully this will work. I'm going to try to chip it off here in a minute, and I'll find out. So I've done that before. Maybe it may have been a wasted day yesterday. Another thing I use a lot of, if I can remember where I put it. Oh, here it is. I use a lot of this on all the epoxy stuff. It's metal set A4. It's a 2-part epoxy. Not real cheap, but better than JB Well, better than any of that stuff I've ever used. And I've used it on things like this. It usually grips really good. So we're just going to see if it holds or not. Be back in a minute. Okay, as you can see, this is not too bad. What I did, since that was ripped, I mean, it was basically, I'll just draw it here. It was ripped out. There's a hole there. Whoops, there's a hole there. And over here, it was ripped out. So I just put some aluminum tape under there. I used that because it's sticky on the back. And when you do epoxies and things, it won't stick to it. If you just stick cardboard under there, it grips it. It's hard to get loose. Sometimes I'll use just green tape, but I had this. That way I could put a little edge on it. So you see the thickness is there. And I mean, it's going to go up and seal to the bottom of the front bumper anyway, but seems to be pretty darn good. As of right now, that was set for 24 hours, and it seems to hold pretty good. This was just split. So I ground a V around it, filled it in, and it's even flexes a little, which is what it's supposed to do, I guess. Some kind of bumper repair. This was just a split. So I kind of just ground a little V down through it, put this over, and I assume it'll sand pretty good. And this one, kind of the same thing. Looks like a big gunky mess. I just put a piece of a paint stick under here. Rolled up the edge a little bit. Let that fill in, and I mean, it's flexing a little. I'm sure I could probably tear the stuff off if I wanted to, but I'm just going to sand that down, get it into shape, and we'll see how that fits. I've also used that bumper bite. If you've got some of these, well, I'm probably going to have to use a little on one of these. I thought it was this. Oh, there's a little gouge right there. Primer will probably handle that, but I've used that on a few of these. The urethane stuff, and I've got a piece upstairs. It's sanded down smooth. It feathered it. It was great. That was that bumper bite stuff. So that piece has been upstairs for probably, geez, I don't know, 6-7 years. And you just make sure it ain't in here. No, it's not in here. It'd been up there for several years, and I was just looking in the box to see if it was one of those. Anyway, I've used it on that stuff before, feathered out. If I get a chance to get up there, I may grab it and show it to you. But this stuff works good. Again, hell, I may just, that's a little bit of a gouge. If the primer don't fill, then I may just skim coat it with that bumper bite, because I know it does stick. And then I've got flex additive with the shop line for the primer, and I know that works. I did a video a while back where I compared things. It was Sim compared to Flex, I think, was one of the videos. I did it on a bumper, and I sprayed that stuff, and I used the Sim flexible primer. And if you just were going to use one light coat for whatever reason, not to fill anything, maybe just adhesion, that worked. The Sim stuff worked good. But I think if you're going to do any filling at all, you use this and primers, or at least a primer with a flex additive. It worked better. Go back and watch that video, and you can see that sometimes if it was too thick, it would crack. Because I found out, well, over the years, I found out the problem with the flex stuff is it leaches out, dries out. And when you're spraying it on bumpers before you put them on the cars, it's not the clear or the base coat that needs the flex. That stuff will flex without it. It's the primer. And the way I freaking realized that. I'd sprayed one. I'd used some epoxy. I had used epoxy primer on it, and after it had been on a while, I was putting my thumb into it, and just like a scab, you want to pick at stuff. But I could hear the primer crack, but the top coat, the color and the clear that was on there wasn't. Eventually, that's probably going to be an issue. It was not on this car. I mean, it was something I did 10 years ago, back when you're trying to figure out how all this stuff worked. So what I do is, you can use epoxy for adhesion, not for build. Just get a thin coat on there. But at the same time, why? If you use a plastic adhesion stuff and put some tooth on the plastics, regular primers seem to hold just fine. So the epoxy will eventually get so hard it don't flex. Do your own experiments if you want to. If you're spraying one day, spray some stuff on a piece of thin plastic and then see for yourself. But that's what it did for me. Anyway, I'm going to sand on some of this stuff, get it shaped. I'll take another shot of it, and see you in a minute. Well, this looks like it did okay and sanded. A little low, but it's covered, no big deal. I just wanted it to hold the hole. Same thing on this side, seems to be fine. That covered over decent, never gonna be seen. I'm just gonna leave it. I had a little bit of this bumper bite stuff left. Actually, I had a bunch left, but this stuff's probably 5 years old. And it was like half dried putty. And this is the last parts of the car, so I put it on there. It seems to have worked fine. I basically mixed a little urethane reducer with it, rolled it in my hand to soften it up. The hardeners, as you can see, well, there's the putty. It came out like that. And then all of these hardeners, the plastic, I guess they're 4 or 5 years old. Hell, stuff split on that. Shows you how long it's been since I've used any of this stuff. But USC makes one, it's like 20 bucks a tube. And since this is really not flexible, I've got regular Bondo, but for 20 bucks I'll probably just get some in case I need it there. One thing I noticed kind of pissed me off when I had this under here flipped over, and it kind of indented from just the weight of it sitting on the 2x4, but luckily nothing up here was really that bad, and the filler piece that should go in there and push up on that. I'll put it a little more heat and relax it. That kind of grabs my ass because that thing was perfect, and it'll be fine. I'll get it back to that. Like I say, this stuff works good. You just can't hardly spread it. It got so dried out and thick. This piece that I put on here, it's kind of gunked up now. I was being a little overzealous when I went to take it apart, and I'm like, hey, let's see how strong it is. So yeah, you can break it, but it broke off. If you remember, it's like this whole piece was missing. So basically the only thing holding it was a little bit of the sim stuff between where it broke, right? It's like a crack there. And when I put the paint stick on there, nothing got behind it. So this time I actually because I liked how strong it was and still flexible, I'm gonna try it one more time. I put some on there. I took my Dremel and drilled little holes and channels so I can build it up a little thicker there. And with the holes, so I drilled straight through, like this is missing. So I drilled little holes straight through, which should just lock it in. The piece that snapped off didn't break, it just didn't, there wasn't enough space to connect to the plastic. Should have thought that out better. Anyway, it'll be good tomorrow. I'll just retry that. And then again, if it ain't there, it ain't no big deal. There's a J-nut, that goes on there, like this one. So there's enough of the rubber for it to catch and hold, so I'll be fine with that. That was it. We'll go play poker tonight. So I'll let you go. Talk to you later. Decided to go ahead, sprayed the adhesion promoter on, one thin light coat of epoxy. I used Omni Epoxy, and that I think that'll just make it adhere better. And then I'm going to use that high build shop line stuff, same as Omni, but with a little flex additive, just because I've got it and really doesn't need it because that stuff's not going to flex anyway. But that's it, got that done. I'll let that sit overnight, probably from now till tomorrow afternoon, about 3, so 12 hours. And then I don't even have to sand the epoxy. It's like 69, 70 degrees in here. And I can just come in and shoot right over it. Build it up a little, as little as I have to. On the flares, it's not much. The spoiler, maybe a little more, but hell, it's down low. So anyway, that's that. Till next time.